Hey everyone, welcome back again to another Flutter tutorial. In this session, we will discuss about storing JSON data and shared preferences. And this is the part 2 video. The previous video, which is the part 1 video which we posted a week before, we were discussing about storing data inside JSON and getting them back from the local storage. And in the part 1 video, we used to have a hard-coded JSON data, that is, we will be predefining a JSON data and we'll be playing around with that particular data to store and retrieve them from the local storage. In this video, we'll be trying to get the data dynamically from the user in runtime, and we try to create a JSON with that particular value what user enters, and we'll be trying to store and retrieve the particular data as well as update that data inside the local storage. Okay, so without wasting time, let's directly jump into the coding part and get this done. First, let me show you a live demo of how it works. Here we have two input fields to get the data, one for the name, another for age. First, let me try to give name over to this text form field and click on the save name button. As soon as I click on this save name button, it is going to create a JSON for this particular value, which is the name, and try to store them inside shared preferences. Okay, and the details will be printed in the console. So let me click this button and you can see here we will be having the same kind of raw data but an empty raw data. You can go over here and check it out. Here we have the same raw data, but the only change is that we won't be having any values over to this. As soon as you click this save name button, you can see that to that particular empty JSON a new entry is being added, and as we try to print the name, it gives the name value which the user types over here, but when we try to print the age value, it shows null because we haven't given any value for the age. Since we haven't given any value, as we try to access the name, it is giving us null. Now if we give a value to this age and click this save age button, you can see here along with the entry name we have another entry called age being added to the raw data, which means that new entry is being created to the same JSON data rather than overwriting the existing one. Now, when we try to access the age, it is able to give us the value which we have given over here in the text form field, right? So you can see the difference here. We have initially when we try to click the save name button, we have only one entry in our JSON data. But when we try to click the save age button, which is a different entry, we have two entries created to the same JSON data. Okay, so this is how it is going to work. Okay, first let's start with the main.dat file. Here in the main.dat file we have a navigation to my home page, and inside the my home page we have a basic set of layouts containing the text form fields and two buttons. So the text form fields are nothing much, it's just a UI component. Everything which happens is going to be inside these two buttons, which is save name and also the save age button. First, starting with the save name button. Inside the save name button, we try to create a JSON with the value what the user types over here in this text form field, right? With the help of the controller, we will be able to access the data, and we try to call the save JSON data with the value which we try to create with the value with the user enters over here. Now inside the save JSON data, the method is going to be same with what we have discussed in the previous video, or the only change is that we used to have this new code snippet which is add entries of. Since the raw data is something which is an empty one, we will be making use of raw data dot add entries of and followed by the JSON data which we pass as the parameter. Now the raw data will be containing an entry with the key as name rather than the empty one. So with that raw data, we'll be making use of JSON encode, and with the help of set string of method, we'll be able to store that as a string inside the shared preferences with the key as JSON data. Now inside our shared preferences, we'll be having only one entry with the key as JSON data, and inside that key we'll be having a JSON in the form of string with the key as name followed by the value as Alice. Okay, and get data and get JSON data is something which is pretty much the same, which hasn't undergone any changes since what we had discussed in the previous video. So it is nothing much to explain over here to this get JSON data. Okay, now let's move on to this save age button and we'll see what is happening over there. Just the same way we discussed with the name, we will be trying to create a JSON for the same value which the user enters over here for the age. So with the age control, we'll be trying to access the value, and we'll be trying to call the same save JSON data method by passing that particular value. Now this time the same add entries of method is being called, but the only difference is that along with the name entry it is going to add another entry in the form of age. Since we are going to pass the key as age, which is entirely different with what we already have. So name is the key which you used to have previously. Now if we try to create a new key and a value, it is going to create another entry with the particular values which we write down over here. Rather, if you try to create if you try to create new entries with the same kind of key, say for example the name, then it is going to override the existing value with the new one. Thereby it will lead to updation of the JSON values. So if you want to update the JSON value, you need to pass in the same kind of key and the value. By doing so, it will override the existing one. If you want to create a new entry, you need to pass a unique key, that is the key which is not already present over in that particular JSON value. Okay, now by doing so a new entry will be created for the with the key as age and value as what the user enters over here in the text form field, and we will be trying to do the same kind of process which is JSON encode and set string method. Okay, so that's all about how you can add entries dynamically to your particular JSON data to store them inside your local storage. And the same way you can update the entries which is already present, and you can pass in the same key to the add entries of method. By doing so, it will automatically update your JSON bundle. All right, that's all about how we can add new entries as well as update entries inside a JSON bundle to store them inside shared preferences. Hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do so, consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.